everyone, I hope you all have been well. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Carolyn Hoover, and today I am going to be sharing my undergraduate honors thesis called The Effects of Social Media on Undergraduate Academic Performance. Before I get started, I just wanted to give a big thank you to both Dr. Shoemaker and Professor Harris for being my first and second reader on the project, and of course a huge thank you to the whole honors school, especially Dr. Mezzi, Rini, and Kate, of course. As I'm sure you guys know, social media has grown substantially over the last decade. Social networks like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, Pinterest, all of these networks 30 years ago didn't even exist, and yet today they have millions and millions of people utilizing them every single day. But even with all those millions of people utilizing them every single day, we really don't know the effects that it has on academics, let alone undergraduate academics. This is why I wanted to focus on it for my research study, because I thought it was important for myself and my peers to understand whether or not it does have a positive or negative impact on your GPA. So the theory that my study is based on is called connectivism theory. And essentially what connectivism theory is really a push for people like myself and yourself to use online internet technologies such as social networks, YouTube, email, online discussion forums, wikis, etc., to learn and share information with others. Now, as I stated before, there's unfortunately not that much information out there regarding social media usage in college undergraduate performance. However, in this study, I included two research questions. The first research question in this study is there a positive and/or negative correlation between social media usage and college academic performance? While the second research question asks, do any specific platforms contribute more positively or negatively than others? Based on these two research questions, I developed two hypotheses. The first being that the more frequently an undergraduate student utilizes social media platforms, the worse their academic performance will be. The second hypothesis predicts that the less frequently an undergraduate student utilizes social media, the better their academic performance will be. In order to conduct this study, I developed a survey using the platform SurveyMonkey and distributed it via email and social media to Monmouth students and my peers in other schools. In total, 231 participants chose to self-report information to the survey on SurveyMonkey with the incentive of a chance to win one of two $50 gift cards. However, due to the requirement of being at least a second-year student, only 210 participants were included in the study. In my survey, I asked 26 questions, one of which asks, on which accounts do you have an account/profile? Select all that apply. Now, while I did include a wide variety of platforms, these four were the top ones that all of my survey participants said that they had. Coming in at first was Instagram. 96% of my survey participants said that they have an active account on Instagram. And second was Snapchat. 93% of my survey participants said that they have an active account. As for Facebook, they have 89% of survey participants saying that they have an active account. And as for Twitter, only 3/4 of my participants said that they have an active account or profile. In order to determine academic performance, I wanted survey participants to self-report their GPA data. And the results speak for themselves. The vast majority of 60% had GPAs between 3.99 to 3.5, which is about the average GPA at an undergraduate level. 28% fell between a 3.0 and a 3.49, and we had 5% 4.0s and 5% 2.99s to 2.5. Only 1% of survey participants noted that they had GPAs below a 2.5. However, we had no survey participants say that they were below a 2.0 on the GPA scale. Now, the top results that we got for the survey to answer hypothesis 1 and 2 was that GPAs between 4.0 and 3.5 actually reported spending less time on social media, considering that the majority, which was 58%, reported spending 4 hours or less a day in total on social media. However, those with lower GPA ranges from 2.99 to 2.0 reported significantly more time, as their majority, which was 64%, reported using social media for 4 or more hours a day. Hence, when isolating GPA by range, the data does support both hypothesis 1 and 2. Though one of the first questions that I asked inquired on which platforms participants had an active account or profile on, the results for this question, which platforms you use the most, varied significantly. In fact, the vast majority of 55% stated that they used Instagram the most, Coming in second was Snapchat with 15%. Twitter had 14% of survey participants stating that they used the platform the most, followed by YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Reddit, Pinterest. Interestingly enough, LinkedIn, which I personally feel is one of the most educational platforms out there, had 0% of survey participants stating that they use that platform the most. As for platforms used the least, it kind of flipped itself. In fact, for Instagram, only 3% of survey participants said that they used Instagram the least. The highest reporting was in Facebook. 26% of survey participants stated that they used that app the least. 23% said they used LinkedIn the least. 16% stated that Pinterest was used the least. 14% stated Twitter, and about 7% stated Snapchat. When comparing the most versus least used platforms, we can look at the most used, which include Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok, compared to the least used apps, which are Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. You can see that the motivations for use don't vary too much. However, these are ranked in order. So for the most used platforms, entertainment and passing time were the top two, and social interaction was the third. Whereas for the least used, social interaction reached the top, whereas passing time was second, information sharing is third, and entertainment was at the bottom. This essentially means that the apps that are considered most used are very entertaining and good for wasting time, whereas the least used apps are more for communication, information sharing, and they're not really used for wasting time, entertainment purposes. They're not super visual, they are more textual as opposed to being visual. Additionally, the hours spent between the most used and least used vary. The most used spent between 1 to 2 hours a day on their social platform that they use the most, whereas the least used spent less than 1 hour a day. It was also important to include the frequency of usage when participants reported using social media throughout the day. When comparing 4.0 GPAs compared to the lower half, which was 2.99 to 2.0, both you can see say throughout the day, late night bedtime, early morning wake up, before or after class. However, with the 2.99 to 2.0 GPAs, they did state during class that they use social media, whereas the 4.0 GPAs noted that not at all. They do not use social media during class. So you might be asking, what does this even mean? Now, when you're isolating GPAs like we just did, you can see that the big difference between the 2.99 to 2.0 GPAs and the 4.0 GPAs is that the 2.99 to 2.0s noted during class they use social media, whereas the 4.0s did not. Using social media during class essentially means that you're multitasking. And noted in my lit review, there was a study done by Wood et al. In 2012 where they had participants perform 2 different tasks to measure their capability of multitasking. It was determined that when 2 cognitive tasks were being performed simultaneously, there were decrements in performance in at least one of the tasks, namely memory performance in the present study. So this essentially means that if you're multitasking during class, using social media while listening to a lecture, you're probably not going to remember the lecture that much because you're so hyper-focused on using the social media in class. And I'm sure as you can piece together, if you're not paying attention to the lecture that your professor is giving you, you're probably not going to do as well as those that were paying attention and not using social media during class on the homework assignments, essays, and exam time. While this wasn't a key difference between the higher and lower GPAs because it was included in both frequency of usage studies, it did appear a lot in my literature review, and I think it's important to note because social media use at late nights and bedtimes can actually disturb and delay sleep in 3 ways, according to Levinson. Levinson's study discovered that it can display sleep, promoting an emotional, cognitive, and physiological arousal. And essentially, lack of sleep is associated with lower GPA. So the more frequently that you're using social media or your phone in general at late night or bedtime, the more possibilities of insomnia or delay of sleep, which could contribute to a lower GPA because you're not getting as much sleep as your body needs. As stated before, my survey included both qualitative and quantitative questions. For the qualitative section, we really wanted to ask participants their opinions. One of these opinions was, what are the pros and cons of social media that you've experienced? For the pros, many cited connection with peers, ease of information, ease of communication with peers, networking opportunities, and entertainment, of course. Whereas the cons, they noted distraction and procrastination, social comparison, wasted time, addiction, and mental health. Now, Both of these categories were cited very frequently in my literature review, so I'm not really surprised at the categories that we received in the feedback. However, what I can say is that the cons, such as mental health and social comparison, are very, very frequent, especially when it comes to undergraduates. Many of the participants noted that they tend to compare themselves to others that they see on social media, specifically their college peers. Whether they're posting a vacation picture or they got an A in an assignment, they feel like they're constantly comparing themselves to others. However, many of them did point out that social media really isn't real life because most of the time, no one's posting anything negative. All of it's positive. And if you're constantly seeing positive thing after positive thing from all of your peers and something negative is happening to you, you might feel like it's only you. And that can really negatively affect your mental health, especially in college. As for the pros, I found it a little bit ironic that so many of my survey participants noted that networking opportunities is a huge pro of social media because 0% of them stated that they use LinkedIn the most. Overall, in this study, Hypothesis 1 and Hypothesis 2 were both supported by the findings because there is a negative correlation between undergraduate GPA and hours spent per day on social media. Essentially, the more frequently an undergraduate student utilizes social media, the lower their grade point average will tend to be. Research question 2 found no specific social media platform to be contributing more positively or negatively to academic performance. However, this is really because I didn't ask individual questions for each platform, as I wanted to limit the amount of time it took to take the survey. Like all things, social media is extremely beneficial in moderation, as it allows undergraduate students to connect with peers, learn new information easily, network with possible coworkers and employers. However, it also comes with disadvantages that can seriously impact an undergraduate's academic performance. Given all of this information from this study, I hope that undergraduate students will strongly consider the results and limit their uses of social media to under 4 hours a day, as the highest GPAs used social media for 4 hours or less per day. Thank you all so much for listening to my study on the effects of social media on undergraduate academic performance. I couldn't have done it without any of your guidance and support. If you guys have any questions regarding any of the data in the study, please feel free to send me an email at carolynhoover@gmail.com or s1134536@monmouth.edu. Thank you all again. I hope you all stay well.